Before there was a nation, before there was freedom, there was a land. A land shaped by ice, fire, and time. A continent untouched by the old world. For thousands of years, this land was home to countless nations: the Cherokee, the Iroquois, the Sioux, the Navajo, each with their own language, law, and legend. They lived in balance with the earth, long before anyone called it America. But across the ocean, change was coming. Empires hungered for gold, glory, and God. And soon, ships would appear on the horizon. In 1492, an Italian sailor named Christopher Columbus, sailing under the flag of Spain, set foot in the New World, a world he never truly understood. To the European powers, it was an open frontier. To the people already here, it was the beginning of an invasion. Over the next century, Spain, France, England, and the Netherlands carved their claims into the soil of the new continent. The Spanish sought gold in the south, the French followed the rivers of the north, and the English, they came to stay. In 1607, a small band of settlers landed in Jamestown, Virginia, the first permanent English colony. 13 colonies would grow along the Atlantic coast, each one shaped by ambition, struggle, and faith. In New England, Puritans sought religious freedom. In the South, plantations rose, built on the backs of enslaved Africans. The seeds of freedom and contradiction were planted side by side. As decades passed, a new identity began to form. Not quite British, not yet American. By the mid-17th century, the colonies were thriving, but the British Crown demanded taxes, obedience, and loyalty. The cry of rebellion echoed from Boston to Philadelphia. In 1776, they made it official. A group of bold men signed a document that would change the world. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. The American Revolution was long and brutal, but against all odds, a ragtag army led by George Washington defeated the greatest empire on earth. And in 1789, a new experiment began, a republic built on liberty and law. The 1800s brought expansion and destiny. Manifest destiny, they called it. The belief that America was meant to stretch from ocean to ocean. Pioneers journeyed west through wilderness and danger, seeking land, gold, and freedom. But for native tribes, it was a time of sorrow. Their lands taken, their people forced into exile. The trail of tears would stain that dream forever. In 1861, the nation turned against itself. The Civil War, the bloodiest conflict in American history, pitted brother against brother, freedom against slavery. When it ended in 1865, more than 600,000 were dead. But the Union had survived, and slavery was abolished. Out of the ashes, a new America was born. The late 19th century was an age of invention and ambition. Railroads connected the coasts. Steel built cities that reached for the heavens. Immigrants arrived by the millions, chasing the American dream. But not all dreams were equal. Children worked in factories. The poor crowded into tenements, and the divide between rich and poor grew ever wider. Yet innovation marched on. Edison lit the world with electricity, and the Wright brothers touched the sky. America was changing fast. In 1917, America entered World War I, emerging as a world power for the first time. But after victory came the Great Depression, a decade of despair that tested the nation's soul. Then, Pearl Harbor, 1941. America was thrust into World War II, and the fight for freedom became global. Factories roared again. Soldiers crossed oceans. From Normandy to Iwo Jima, they fought not for conquest, but for liberty. In 1945, victory came, and a new era began. The Cold War, a silent battle between democracy and dictatorship, freedom and fear. While America stood tall abroad, at home, it faced its greatest moral test. From Montgomery to Washington, voices rose demanding justice. Martin Luther King Jr. dreamed of a nation where character mattered more than color. His dream inspired millions and changed the heart of a nation. But the struggle was not over. It continues. In every call for equality, in every voice that dares to be heard. The late 20th century brought new triumphs. Man walked on the moon. Computers reshaped the world. And a new generation found its voice in music, art, and protest. The Cold War ended. The Berlin Wall fell. And America stood as the sole superpower, a beacon of freedom and innovation. But the new century brought new challenges. 9/11, wars overseas, economic crises, political divides, and cultural change. Through it all, America endured. Because its strength has never been in its power, but in its people. From the first footprints on this land to the rockets soaring beyond the stars, America's story is one of contradiction and courage, of dreams and divisions, of failures and rebirth. It is not perfect. It was never meant to be. But it is always becoming. Every generation writes a new chapter. In classrooms, in courtrooms, in the streets. And so long as people dare to dream, to speak, to build, to believe, the spirit of America will endure. From the ashes of war to the stars of tomorrow. This is the story of America, a land still writing its destiny.